Two words really pop out at me when I think about this movie. You wanna know what those two words are? Tit wallet. Yep. Tit wallet. Lindsay here, and this is my review for The House That Jack Built. Lars Von Trier takes us straight to hell with his new film, The House That Jack Built. It stars Matt Dillon as the titular Jack, and Jack is a serial killer. The movie is narrated, kind of. It's narrated by a conversation between Jack and his guide, and as the movie goes along, you find more out about who this guide is and what kind of journey they're on and why they're having this conversation. But the movie focuses on 5 separate incidences throughout Jack's life, which kind of molded him and shaped him, and kind of the evolution of his career as a serial killer.
Some people claim that the atrocities we commit in our fiction are those inner desires which we cannot commit in our controlled civilization. So they are expressed instead through our art.
I went and saw this movie, and I saw the unrated director's cut. I have not yet seen the theatrical release. I'm very interested to see what they leave in, what they don't. I'm assuming what they mostly take out is some of the gore and the more horrific elements, especially involving children. But the cut that I saw, I really liked a lot. It was very shocking in some parts. It's funny. It's very funny in some parts. And I think what I liked most about it is it kind of does a psychological deep dive into the character.
I believe heaven and hell are one and the same. The soul belongs to heaven and the body to hell.
What shaped him, what molded him, what drove him to do what he did in the ways that he did, and how he evolved from each kill to each kill. And like I said, this film is semi-narrated. You're listening to a conversation between 2 people, but the story is very much being told by Jack. And so right off the bat, you get an unreliable narrator, which I really like, because you are seeing the events that happened, but you're seeing them through his eyes. So the people that he interacts with and comes into contact with, you're seeing them through his lens. And you're also seeing flashes of stock footage and also pieces of history, little lessons on art here and there. And this is all coming from the Jack character. This is not a slasher film in any way. It's more realistic when it comes to the gore and the psychology behind it. The atmosphere of the film is extremely realistic, even though you're getting a lot of these instances of magical realism and seeing them through the prism of Jack's thoughts and his obsessions and what he thinks is important. There isn't really, when he's talking about his murders, you don't get a lot of stylistic lighting or camera angles. It's very straightforward. The lighting is very stark and natural. So it seems like you're sitting there watching something actually happen. And I think that lends to the, I wouldn't say horror, but the more icky parts. There were definitely times when I was watching through my fingers.
Mind if I take a look in the van, please, sir?
I'd be a bad guy if I said no.
I really liked the way that Lars Von Trier constructed the story. It reminded me a lot of Stanley Kubrick, using, title cards and different music to convey emotion and things like that. And also just imagery to tell the story and to get those feelings and points across. And also the very experimental nature of the ending. I mean, the final 20 minutes is like a serial killer version of the last 20 minutes of 2001. And a lot of the cutaways, you get music from certain singers. You get also a reference to Bob Dylan. So there's all this kind of mixture of art and murder throughout the film. And it gets extremely philosophical in some points when talking about religion, when talking about art and film. It can get a little preachy, but that's to be expected because you're listening to a psychopath talk about himself and what influences him and inspires him. So it's bound to get a little lofty.
Let me put it this way. Very few make it all the way without uttering a word. But do carry on merrily, just don't believe you're going to tell me something I haven't heard before.
Because this is someone who is driven by ego and power, especially his power over women. I thought that was one of the more interesting parts of the conversation between Jack and his guide, was his views towards women. Because you can tell in the scenes where he has female victims, they are portrayed as extremely stupid, and the guide calls him out on that. And I just loved the exchange between those two when it came to that topic. I thought it was very interesting to me.
If you feel like screaming, I definitely think that you should.
I mean, you could tell that mostly what he took inspiration from is Dante's Divine Comedy, but he also took a lot of influence from other cases and other serial killers to create the serial killer Jack. And I think that's kind of my one criticism about the film, is that it was just kind of hodgepodge of every serial killer trope and, you know, famous serial killer thing that you could think of and put them into one character. You've got stuff from Ed Gein, you have Ted Bundy, some Jeffrey Dahmer, and not just pulling from specific serial killers, but also the Serial Killer 101 book of psychological behavior. You have trophies taken as far as like bodies and body parts, and he also takes pictures. He drives a very, very specific type of vehicle. He even says himself that he is a psychopath, and this character exhibits all those typical psychopathic behaviors. They're very, very manipulative when it comes to their victims and gaining trust. He uses a crutch at one point, just like Ted Bundy did. They show him hurting animals as a child. Another serial killer thing that they kind of pull from is the Zodiac Killer, where he's mailing pictures and notes to the local newspapers. The only way they kind of mix up this amalgamation of a serial killer is a little bit with his MO. Most serial killers only kill in one type of way. He kills in several different types of ways, but they very much show it as a compulsion for him. It's something that he needs to do.
When I think about all the things I've done in my life without in any way resulting in punishment.
And this film was fraught with controversy from the start. I mean, at the Cannes Film Festival, people walked out and were booing. Over 100 people walked out of this film, calling it nihilistic, among other things. And then the screening that I went to has controversy surrounding it as well, where it was an unrated cut released by IFC, and they may have got themselves into a little bit of trouble with the ratings board because they released it so close to the actual theatrical release or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what the big issue was, but it was another negative story tied to this film. I would definitely recommend going and seeing this film, although I would wait maybe until they release the unrated director's cut, if they ever release that onto home video and video on demand. I think just like a week ago, the whole unrated version popped up on YouTube for like an hour before it was taken down. But this is it's a very shocking film. Yeah, some of this film was just brutal. So brutal. There's a lot of booby mutilation. Ugh. Yikes. I'm gonna take this opportunity to actually plug something. I've never done this before. I've never actually plugged anything, but I had the great honor to be a guest on another YouTube channel. the channel They Said We Said. They invited me to come and be a guest on their Director Spotlight series, and it was all about Kubrick. Speaking of Kubrick and how I compared this film to some of his work, yes, we talked for about an hour and a half about Kubrick and his life and his films and just the way he was and why he was the way he was and why people wanted to work with him. So if you'd like to check that out, I will put a link below in the description. And also below in the description are all my social media links. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, I'll stick my Instagram down there so you can keep up with all the stupid stuff that I put out there on the internet. That's gonna do it for this review. I think this is the first time and probably the last time I'll use the words tit wallet in a review. So until next time, this is Lindsay signing off. I'll check you later.